Now, you don't sing, you can't dance, you don't tell jokes, and you've been doing this for 19 years. That's right.
Welcome to the Doc Show, coast to coast.
I've got the best jokes in the world, but nobody here gets them.
He's reading it and he got it wrong.
That says it all.
Although he won't call it Muslim terror, because those are his people.
Give Doc a call, 407-498-3193.
That dude that runs Canada's got balls. I wish they would adopt us.
Oh, I like him.
I don't know why his parents named him Kareem, but he's not Muslim. He actually listens to the show. He likes you. I questioned his sanity sometimes.
Oh, I like her. She's a cutie.
What do you get when you cross a highly outspoken individual with the power of radio?
If I may be so bold, and I don't like to ask this.
Guys, how much more do you need?
Well, you still get the highly outspoken Doc.
Would you rather be South Canada with a brave prime minister who flat out called it Muslim terror?
Often imitated, never quite duplicated.
Or would you rather be under the rule of jihadists?
Any precautions or modifications?
Which is slowly but surely going to happen.
This is the Doc Show, coast to coast, with Doc Holliday.
Well, it was quite a day here in Osceola County, Florida. Law enforcement from everywhere was here. There were 2 funerals, and they belonged to guys that wear a badge. Now, of course, the person that is responsible for it is claiming to have a disease. Well, that's for down the road. Let's listen in.
Patrol ID 589. Patrol to ID 589. Negative response, Sergeant Sam Howard, ID 589. This is the final call for ID 589, Sergeant Sam Howard. End of watch, August 19th, 2017. Sergeant Sam Howard is out of service after 10 years of dedicated police service. Patrol ID 698. Patrol to ID 698. Negative response, Officer Matthew Baxter, ID 698. This is the final call for ID 698, Officer Matthew Baxter. End of watch, August 18, 2017. Officer Baxter is out of service after over 3 years of dedicated police service. Sergeant Howard and Officer Baxter are 10-7 on this date, Thursday, August 24th, 2017. Rest easy, gentlemen. We have the watch from here.
It's just 10:33 at this time for a traffic stop.
That's a little moment of silence for him. It was absolutely incredible. I know somebody that works for the Orange County Sheriff's Department. And the whole minus a few they needed to keep on duty. Orange, Seminole, naturally Osceola. They all showed up. 911 workers. You know, if whoever's time they could expend. You know, people that work in the offices. Also, if they could be, you know, expendable for this. Because they can't shut everything down. Because the criminals would just love that. But yeah, it was a tough day too. Kissimmee police officers were laid to rest, and by the way, that was put together by Bam Bam Sam, who has family in her in her family. She has police.
My brother, yeah. So, you know, I just thought that this could be, you know, our tribute. Maybe take the first hour of the show and just, you know, I think it's hard, because we're such a small community. I'm sorry. Whew. So I was watching some of the funeral today because, you know, of course, in this day and age of media, everything can be live streamed, you know, and of course, in every fashion of every police and firefighter funeral that you've ever seen, they come out in droves, and it was good to see. You know, I think what's so amazing is that the families that spoke at the funeral today, they showed their gratitude and their love and respect for our local community and other police communities, you know, other members of the family of Blue here in Florida that came out of their way to be here today. A number of police departments from South Florida, you know, drove up yesterday to be here. And, you know, if you're not here locally, then you don't know the size of First Baptist Orlando. And I've never actually been inside the church itself. But it's huge. The campus is huge. It's just anytime there is any major Christian evangelical event, people kind of go there to have it, you know, have it there because it's so huge. And it was a packed house. They had to add seats. The pastor's running joke was, if the fire marshal is here, please don't, you know, please don't say anything to us today.
Don't count.
Yeah. But there were definitely some touching moments in the funeral and some highlights. And I kind of thought that, you know, as a community, if, you know, our listeners and whoever, you know, if you knew either of the officers, if you didn't know either of the officers, maybe, you know, maybe you're feeling it as part of the small community that we are. You know, I was talking to my mom on the way home, and she said that it was nice to see even in New York, they had a story in the Daily News about it and have been running a story continuously about it, but they ran a story about the funeral today. And she said what it was nice to see is that, members of our community got together and, we had the local florist here in St. Cloud who continues to make back the blue ribbons. Our stores locally here in Osceola County are sold out of blue lights for your garage or for your porch. People are lighting up their house in blue. I've done it. I got big floodlights waiting for the call from the HOA, but I don't care. Don't mess with me. The St. Cloud Police Department here, which, we're obviously a neighboring city to Kissimmee, they had yard signs made up that say back the blue, and they've had them for a while, but they had a whole bunch extra made up, and people were coming down to the St. Cloud Police Department to pick those up and put them in their lawn. People are putting the bows on their cars. They're putting it on their mailboxes, and people, I was scanning the web, and there's pictures of residents who have gone down, residents who normally would not go to McLaren Circle. I mean, and I'm not trying to make light of this, but when we say this was a bad part of Kissimmee, this was a bad part of Kissimmee. I mean, it's not one that most people would want to go to unless they have to. And, pastors and just members of the community have been going there where the incident happened, and they've had a memorial, a makeshift memorial that they've put up where the incident happened. And, they've gone down to the Kissimmee Police Department and laid flowers and candles and ribbons and just showing their respect and their love. And, you hear people that are, posting thank yous and all different aspects of social media, and different posts, and just to acknowledge that this horrific event happened. And it's not to say that, it's more meaningful than any other police funeral, because any police funeral is a terrible, terrible thing. But, my mom was saying in New York, when it happens, the people that are officers or that are family of the blue, in the family, because those are the people that you'll see their house lit up, or you'll see that they hang the police flag from their flag posts on their homes. She said, but as a community, they don't necessarily, the citizens don't necessarily get together to do something like we have here in Osceola County and Kissimmee and St. Cloud. I said to my mom that, I said, I think part of the difference is that we're such a small community and you're such a big city. And if you've ever seen a New York City police funeral, it is seas of blue, no doubt. I mean, if the officers can take the time off, they go. It's just the way it is. But you don't necessarily always get to see the community come out to those services, or you don't necessarily see them take part in it. And I think it's just, I think it's the difference of New York City being a big, huge metropolis versus the city of Kissimmee. While it may be 40 to 50,000 residents, at the end of the day, it still has a somewhat small town feel. So people are connected to these officers, and we don't have a huge, huge police department like they do in New York, and we don't have a number of precincts here the way they do in New York. So it is very different. But I just think it's so important to remember that these men that we pay respect to today put on that uniform and never asked for anything in return, you know? And that's really, they were courageous. They were God-fearing men, and they just went out there and did it because they wanted to, because it was the right thing to do, and because they were called to do it. And I don't think that they ever, for one moment, stopped to think about, was this going to be my last tour? I don't think, I mean, I'm not a police officer, but I would pretty much bet you can't go into that. You know, you can't go into that profession always thinking that, nor could you be a firefighter thinking it's going to be your last duty, you know, when responding to a call. So, you know, I just want to use this time. I want to use this hour to just pay respect and just to hear things good about these officers and hear a little more about them. If you hadn't had the chance to see the funeral stream this afternoon, I kind of wanted to start off. So the first clip I have of the funeral, and then we'll maybe go to break after that, is a chief of police of Kissimmee, and basically what he had to say about these two officers. So if you're okay, and I'm sorry about the sniffles, guys. It's emotional. Sorry. So if you're okay with that, we'll run it and then go to break and then run some more. Well, we'll talk, and, you know. You're just shaking your head at me.
I just don't want to get in the ruin your moment.
Okay, well, this is part of the funeral this morning, and this is the chief of police.
We have new equipment.
Yeah, but
it's acting like the old equipment.
No.
So how many audio cuts were you able to get? Yeah, just the two, you think? Okay.
Well, there's a couple, if I can get this to play. Hold on.
Yeah.
It's not the equipment, it's the operator. Sorry, guys. Here you go.
But I have a lot to say about these two men. To the family and friends of Sergeant Sam Howard, and to the family and friends of Officer Matthew Baxter, on behalf of the men and women of the Kissimmee Police Department, I want each of you to know that we are absolutely brokenhearted over the loss of your loved ones. Although there are no words we can offer to ease your pain, please know that we loved both Sam and Matthew dearly, and they will remain in our hearts forever. The turnout today is not only a tribute to their service, but an acknowledgement of the amazing individuals they were. I can also tell you we received tremendous support from literally every corner of the world, from cards to letters to social media posts to flowers, etc., with a consistent message of love, support, and prayers for both of your families, our entire agency, and our community. It has actually been overwhelming in the grandest fashion. You see, our job is inherently dangerous. We face the unknown out on the street every moment we are on duty. It is our job to question the suspicious, to run towards danger, to be guardians for the weak, and to remove the treacherous. Sam and Matthew were dedicated to making the city of Kissimmee a safer place, and each performed their jobs admirably. To my KPD family, I am sorry that you are going through this, and I understand the devastation that is in your heart right now. If there was anything I could do to change that, with every fiber of my being, I would do it. My message to you has been and will remain the same. Together we are strong, and we will get through this. I will get you through this. I would like to thank the community leaders, elected officials, and dignitaries in attendance today for your support for law enforcement. It is very much appreciated. As I look out into the large crowd gathered here today, I see so many heroes dedicated to serving their communities. I see men and women who put their lives on the line every day to protect our citizens from evil. For your commitment to excellence in your duties, I say thank you. Today we are here to reflect on the impact of two fallen heroes. Sergeant Sam Howard and Officer Matthew Baxter are now law enforcement angels called to join too many others as they begin their next chapter of service. Their duty now is to provide watch over their remaining Kissimmee Police Department brothers and sisters as they continue in their service to the city of Kissimmee. As I began preparations and determining my remarks for today, I recognized many similarities between Sam and Matthew. You know, law enforcement is a unique endeavor, and most who serve in this arena would insist that it is a calling versus a profession. There are very few undertakings so noble as the protection of those who cannot protect themselves. Both of our heroes today were called to law enforcement as evidenced by their commitment to excellence in their individual assignments. I would consider Sam and Matthew to be what I call the epitome of a true law enforcement professional, and what that stands for. To start, they both displayed great pride in their uniform presence, and they always looked sharp. In fact, in Sam's time as a detective, right before his promotion, I would often greet him in the hallway with, "How's the best dressed man at KPD doing today?" And his clothing was only upstaged by the huge smile as he answered, and it was always in the positive. And of course, Matthew was our supermodel in uniform, always looked as if it was airbrushed on. And he would make sure that you knew that from time to time with his mostly on the left side smile and nod. Each of these men were extremely hard workers who were relentless in their quest to capture criminals, while exhibiting a commitment to community that afforded them the opportunity to build positive relationships, and more importantly, relationships with our young people. I can't tell you how many messages via social media outlets that have come in from our community with specific examples of how Sam and Matthew impacted a life by simply taking the time to talk with someone, delivering a free Slurpee coupon, or from just a genuine interest to hear another's personal story. These two men truly cared about people, and I'm not sure there's a better compliment I can give either. Both of our fallen heroes are husbands, fathers, sons, and brothers, and each has a wonderful family who I am honored to have met. I want to be very clear to the families of each. We have reviewed the facts of this incident through our investigation, and neither of these men did anything wrong, absolutely nothing. In fact, it was because of their actions to ensure one person present was clear from harm's way that actually set off this horrific chain of events. Because of the suspect's erratic behavior, they needed to be sure this lady was safe and out of danger. She conveyed to our detectives in a follow-up investigation that without question, these two heroes were responsible for saving her life. You see, they didn't care about where she was from. They didn't care about her history. They didn't care about her stature in the community. They just cared that she was a fellow human being, that they both had sworn an oath to protect at all costs, even above their own safety. My God, how powerful is that? What a testament to the character of these two brave men. John 15:13 says, "Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends." Family, sometimes we do everything right and evil still prevails. If I could now, I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about Sam and Matthew individually. Sam Howard was a 10-year veteran of the Kissimmee Police Department. Sam is a homegrown Kissimmee man, having graduated from Osceola High School in the year 2000. He was a terrific athlete, playing both offense and defense in football, basketball, wrestling, and get this barrel-chested guy that could bench press a bus wrestled in high school at the weight of 160. And he also ran track. In 2000, Sam joined the Army National Guard and was activated in 2004 to Iraq, where he served as a communication specialist, often in firefight conditions. In his application process to become a police officer, Sam indicated 3 goals for himself in law enforcement. He wanted to serve on the SWAT team, work as a detective, and attain a leadership role within the agency. Family, I am so proud to realize that he achieved every one of his goals in his time at KPD. Often law enforcement officers spend their entire career and never achieve every one of their career goals. Sam did it, and he earned every bit of it. On July 7th, 2017, I had the honor and privilege of promoting Sam to the rank of sergeant. Sergeant Howard passed every attribute one would look for in reviewing promotional candidates. He was a natural leader who genuinely cares about people, a strong work ethic, a consummate professional. He was engaged in the agency and had a commitment to excellence in all that he does. And of course, he had an infectious smile that could win over any room or situation. It was just a couple of weeks ago that our schedules worked out that Sam and I got to meet for his Go Forth and Conquer promotional speech. That generally takes place before his new assignment, but because of the delay, he actually got a few weeks with his squad prior to our meeting. Now, Sam is a very high-energy guy. Knowing this going into our meeting, I had to strategically determine when I would take a pause in the message I wanted to give him, often with consideration on if I would even take a breath. Because if you give him even the slightest crack, watch out. Especially if he's excited about something. Well, I could tell from the moment that he walked in, because he had spent time with his squad already, that he had some things to tell me. The best way I can describe it is he sat in a chair in my office, and it's like that racehorse that has the doors closed, and he's jumping to go, and Sam is like leaning like this. So I knew he was excited, and I knew that he wanted to tell me that he had already got a start. He knew what I was going to say, and he wanted to prove to me that he had already gotten a start. I may have messed with him a little bit, and I would pretend like I was winding down and then start again just to watch him jerk some more, but we had fun with that. But when Sam finally got his opportunity to talk, he gushed over his new squad and assignment. He talked about his plans, how he would develop those under his charge, and a strategy towards building relationships within the community. He told me how much more exciting it was to be a sergeant and have a team than it was as his time as a corporal. He mentioned the word team multiple times in his description of the time he had spent with his new squad. To Sam's team, I can tell you that in the short time that you all worked together, he deeply cared about each and every one of you. With a genuine passion, he spoke about every member on his team and his leadership plans for each of you. It was never more apparent to me the impact you already had on him. His overall excitement that evening confirmed his leadership abilities to me and cemented that I had no better choice for this position. He was also very excited to host his first squad get-together as a sergeant. Unfortunately, that was to be this weekend for the Mayweather-McGregor fight. This past Sunday, I was in my office trying to get some semblance of order with everything on my desk, and I moved a notepad over onto a stack of some other papers or other notepads, and underneath I found the yellow sticky that was my reminder to put on my calendar that Sam Howard had invited me to come join you and watch the fight. Understandably, I don't get many of those type invitations at the squad level, but I can promise you this was as special to me. I will keep that forever. BJ and Unique, I am so very happy that you all were able to have that family trip to Europe. I remember leading up to the trip and occasionally bump into Sam, and he would update me on the number of extra duty jobs he had left until it was entirely paid for. And he went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. He knew, and he made sure that I knew. So I was excited for him. But I know that he was excited to be able to do that for the both of you. At some point after your return, I asked him how the trip went. And remember, I told you how Sam, how fast he would speak in a normal conversation. Well, when he's excited, it's impossible to listen that fast. In fact, I had to keep reminding him as he's talking to me that I'm old and I can't listen that fast. He didn't slow down. I went back and checked 2 or 3 times to make sure that he was truly a born and raised Floridian, because most of us can't generate that many words per minute coming from Florida. No offense to... regardless of how much I actually was able to comprehend in his excitement, because of his excitement and the joy in his eyes in telling me that story, and I'm not even the closest individual to him, so, you know, when you consider all those facts, it just showed me how much he is in love with you too. I was proud to kind of share that moment with him for a moment. BJ, I'm a firm believer that the Lord works in mysterious ways, and I'm not sure if you two high school sweethearts honestly knew how special your daughter would be when you decided to name her Unique. But I've got to tell you, I am so very impressed with this young lady and how strong she has been through all of this. She has demonstrated a strength and that's surpassed all of us, and we're all supposed to be older and stronger than she is. You and Sam have raised a wonderful young lady, and I can certainly see why he was so very proud of her. Unique, I don't know if you caught me, but I would watch you when I was having my moments, and your unimaginable strength helped me get through my part of this. So for that, I want to say thank you. Officer Matthew Baxter was a 3-year veteran of the Kissimmee Police Department. He was born in Hagerstown, Maryland, but raised in Baltimore and Shenandoah Junction, West Virginia. Matthew was also an excellent athlete, having played football and wrestled in high school. Although not conveyed in his police application, Matthew had conveyed to me his goals upon coming onto the police department included becoming a detective with a focus on narcotics investigations and to also serve on the SWAT team. As I read through a reference letter from a class coordinator at Valencia Criminal Justice Institute, he outlined first meeting Matthew while serving together in the Big Brothers program of Central Florida. The letter highlights personal observations of how dedicated Matthew was to his little brother in the program. It talks about his unwavering dedication to providing a positive impact in this young man's life. It then further details Matthew's excitement upon learning he would start the police academy. And it talked about Matthew's focus and that him now being in a better position to make a difference in people's lives. Matthew wanted to make a difference, and he did. Further in the application, both academy class coordinators sent in their recommendation, and they raved about his leadership characteristics and his athletic abilities displayed throughout the academy, leading him to be designated as the first squad leader in the class, a very honorable distinction among academy recruits. I specifically remember the day Matthew interviewed with then Chief Massey and I as his final step in the hiring process. Without reservation, and still today, I remember him as being the most outstanding interview I have ever been a part of, ever. He was poised, confident, and it was completely evident his life's mission was to become a police officer. I remember his face lighting up when speaking about being awarded the best athlete in the academy. He was very proud of that accomplishment, and he should have been. Now, believe it or not, Chief Massey and I were pretty athletic back in our day, And it shortly became a battle of one-ups during the interview process. In the end, of course, Matthew won, and I'm confident his mission that day was to leave us no doubt that we were hiring someone bigger, stronger, faster, and of course it's Matthew, so better looking than we ever were. Because Matthew was still a very young tenured police officer, many of his career goals were still in front of him. I will tell you, he was on his way and demonstrated the ability to be an extremely hard worker. I recently had a corporal within the agency tell me about the fact that he used, and this was on a different squad, the fact that he used Matthew's work ethic and dedication to duty as a benchmark for the members on his squad. Now think about that for a minute. A young 3-year officer already being utilized as a benchmark for others to emulate. In reading over Matthew's personnel file, I was reminded of his life-saving award. The unusual part about reading that award was the assisting officer in saving his life, saving the individual's life. It was his future wife, Sadia. They both responded to an attempted suicide by hanging. Matthew and Sadia immediately provided life-saving measures to include 12 cycles of CPR before regaining a pulse on the victim. The subject was transported to the hospital where he recovered completely from the incident, solely due to their life-saving actions. How's that for a first date? I honestly feel like I have a special bond with Matthew and Sadia. They were both hired during my tenure with the agency, and we all shared that kind of new to the agency bond. We had a number of conversations together as this young couple worked to navigate through, both of them being law enforcement professionals, our difficult work schedules, and starting out with a new family. We shared some meaningful conversations, and Sadia, I would like to personally thank you for allowing me to be even a small part of the two of your lives. In conversations with just Matthew, I would often have to remind him to enjoy the moment and the processes along the way. You see, he was a very driven individual who wanted to reach for the stars the minute he was sworn in. And by stars, I mean mine. And I try not to be a selfish person, but I'll be honest, much of my advice to him was centered around self-preservation, because I still like my job. I know in one conversation, his eyes started to wander around my office, and so I just assumed he had had enough. I can tend to go on. And he had gotten bored with the conversation. However, I later figured out that he was just redesigning the office in his mind, soon to be his office. So what I do know, Sadia, is that he loved you and the girls very much. He loved being a dad and having a family, and you all were really his world. Miss Brown, I can tell you that in my conversations with Sadia, she often raved about how wonderful a father Matthew was and how appreciative she was that he would do anything for his 4 girls. Being a dad myself, I honestly don't believe there's a better compliment I can pay you about your son. Now, as I begin to work towards closing my remarks, the families gave me permission to make a challenge this morning. And I talked a little bit about the overwhelming support that we received from literally every corner of the world, and thousands upon thousands of messages of love and support and prayers for the families, for the men and women of the Kissimmee Police Department. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. I can tell you how much we needed that. We needed every bit of that to not only get us through until today, but these folks needed every bit of that as confirmation that the vast majority of our community is not apathetic towards law enforcement. They needed every bit of that to confirm there's a reason for them to put on the uniform and go out there and protect you every day that they do. The difficult part for me standing here this morning is trying to wrap my head around and understand why it takes a tragedy before we come together as a community. You see, we've done this before. Just last year, my friend, Lieutenant Deborah Clayton, was murdered in Orlando. 3 years ago, our brother, Deputy Scott Pine, was murdered in Orange County. You know, we kind of do the same things. We get together and we have some community events. We'll probably have a town hall or two, and those are wonderful. But I've got to ask you, what have we really accomplished? Other than maybe making us feel good for a few minutes and checking a box. We got to figure out a way to sustain the momentum of the community, the sense of community that we've had since Friday night this past week. Men and women in law enforcement are not expendable. Men and women in law enforcement do not consider anybody in their communities expendable, as evidenced by the heroic efforts of these two men. So my challenge to you is that you have the guts to look into the eyes of these family members until you understand their sorrow and heartbreak. I ask you to have the guts to look in the eyes of these children until you comprehend that they will grow up without their dad. I ask you to have the guts to look into the eyes of the men and women of the Kissimmee Police Department and see the questions and the heartache. We have to carry this momentum for more than getting us through this service or the weekend. We have to carry this momentum so that we can finally start making an impact. And we can stop the senseless violence against law enforcement professionals across our country. We have to use everything in our power as the greatest nation on earth to provide long-term mental health care, especially for veterans. We all hold our veterans. It's obvious we all hold our military veterans in the highest regard. And I believe that we owe each and every one of them, through every ounce of resource that we have in this country, that when they come back from theater, that we do everything in our power to make sure they're healthy. These individuals are receiving the highest level of military training in the world. And then they come back armed with that training, and they operated under a different set of rules than law enforcement does here. So I would ask, as a tribute to our two fallen brothers who gave everything they had, and as a tribute to our families who lost everything they had, that we continue this momentum, because it's been beautiful. I've seen more people hug, and honest to God, it makes me feel wonderful that we actually can do this. But let's carry this momentum until we can come back at some point and sing to the world that we figured it out, that we've got the people that want to engage in violence in our community where they belong, and we continue to hug each other and love each other and prosper for the remainder of our lives. In closing, Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Families, please know that as long as the good Lord allows, I will always be here for you. I can promise you that every member of the Kissimmee Police Department is cemented in your family forever. The memories of Sam and Matthew will always live on in our hearts. God bless you, God bless the Kissimmee Police Department, and God bless law enforcement. Thank you.
Yeah, he had a good stretch there.
He did. I'm sorry. It was longer than I remembered, but
That's okay.
I thought it was important. I thought it was important because who else can say it better?
And if you like to make a comment, because we're going to go to break.
Yes.
407-498-3193, and then you have...
I have one more clip. It's a shorter one. It's that I'd like to run. It's two fellow officers just basically talking about Officer Baxter, I believe, and it's kind of, it just gives you a good indication of I believe he was talking about both of them, but it's just a really good clip, and it's something special. I did not realize until today that Officer Baxter's wife was also an officer. So crazy stuff.
All right, and we break. It is 53 minutes past the hour.